So, I've made a couple videos talking about some concerns some people have on the internet about the merger between Funimation and Crunchyroll. Things like Funimation's streaming service is still running, and there are still some titles that have not moved to Crunchyroll. Only the censored version of some titles have moved as opposed to the uncensored versions. Layoffs of translators as well as writers, and those who are lucky enough to keep those jobs are stuck with low payments. Lack of competition, and Crunchyroll recasting Kyle McCarley as Mob in Mob Psycho 100 being anti-union. Speaking of, recently another incident like that happened to Laura Post with Tower of God, and now they're being accused of selling people's information. I'll explain more on those in a little bit. Right now I want to explain a little bit why I made the previous videos, and now this one. I want to be a little more honest with you on how I feel about this subject. I actually wish Funimation was back, or maybe this merger never happened. Because, as an actor myself, especially since I'm filming a web series, I have expressed interest in English dubbing for anime, and Funimation was well known for it. I probably still have HIDIVE and G-Kids as an option, but Funimation, from my experience, was the most popular dubbing studio. They have a lot of good stuff, and looking at some videos of various cast members, particularly the ones from Fairy Tail, it looks like they would be easy to get along with, where you could chill, hang out, and talk about some of your favorite roles and stuff. I've also been making some videos called What If Anime Voice Actors Had a Marvel Role, like Todd Abercorn as the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four, Jeremy Lee as Mary Jane Watson from Spider-Man, Newton Pittman as Iceman from the X-Men, Colleen Clinkenbeard as Captain Marvel or Black Widow from the Avengers, and Robert McCullum as Moon Knight. I just think that they would get a kick out of a concept like that because they've played characters with similar personalities and abilities. And if I made my own Marvel anime universe, I would make it anime-influenced and cast them as those respective characters. I thought by passing on all these reports, it would maybe increase the likelihood of boycotting Crunchyroll and ending this merger, but since there hasn't been any new reports and the money keeps flowing apparently, I was becoming a little more skeptical. Even the One Piece dub has finally moved from Funimation to Crunchyroll, but even that wasn't going to make me create an account there. Before this happened, Laura Post made a report how frustrated she was with Crunchyroll recasting the English dubbing cast for Tower of God. The video game client wanted to dub the new mobile game using Post and the rest of the cast. That was when Crunchyroll came in and said they own the voice prints and they decided not to use them. But according to Post, she and her lawyers checked her contract and have found no such section that said anything. Because of this, many have come to the conclusion that Crunchyroll was lying. So why did they refuse the client with Post in the cast? Because dubbing the game was union. This isn't the first time Crunchyroll expressed being against union contracts. Like I said, Kyle McCarley has been there with Mob Psycho 100. Anyway, not only that, but they weren't allowed to be cast as new characters, nor could they at least audition. Because of this, she decided she will not work with Crunchyroll in any future project without any protections of a union contract. So why is Crunchyroll anti-union? The most likely reason is because they don't want to spend so much money on the cast. Especially since most people believe they're monopolizing anime. I have no doubt this will happen again in the future. On September 15th, Sony and Crunchyroll have reached a settlement in a class action lawsuit with Salvador Beltran Jr., Eli Gross, and others, and made American Crunchyroll users eligible for a payment of $30. The former of the two have been accused of violating the US Video Privacy Protection Act by revealing and illegally selling personal information to Facebook, Adobe, and Google. Of course, Sony and Crunchyroll denied these claims but agreed to settle the lawsuit, apparently to avoid uncertainties and expenses associated with continuing the case. Anime News Network has the link to the form you can sign. Now, I'm not an expert on how this works, but I can pass on some things I've learned from other YouTubers. In order to sign this settlement, you need to be a resident of the US, a registered user on the streaming service, and watch the videos on their online site, mobile app, or any other service owned by Crunchyroll between September 8th, 2020 and September 20th, 2023. It must be submitted by December 12th, 2023. Now, before you sign it, I want to say a couple things I suggest to keep in mind. Selling personal information is nothing new. When you go on a website and or create an account, it means they're collecting your personal information. There's always a link that reads privacy policy or privacy terms that explains what you're agreeing to let them collect. Another thing, the reason Crunchyroll is going through this settlement and paying consumers roughly $30 is because it's more cheaper to do this than go to full court, which would be way more expensive and take even longer. By signing this settlement, it means you're agreeing that they don't have to go to full court to prove they didn't sell anyone's personal info without permission, and you don't get to see the real evidence of what happened. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I learned this from Otaku Spirit, who explained more on this situation because everybody kept saying Crunchyroll is evil and they lost a lawsuit.
What it comes down to is cases like this, we don't really know exactly what happened. That's the unfortunate thing with settlements. Just to give people an idea, I'm not a lawyer, but my basic knowledge of court systems and stuff like that and how it works is you'll often have a case where you have a plaintiff. This person lodges a lawsuit against another company, and then they'll kind of deliberate back and forth. They'll say, this is what we got, this is what we're gonna do, and sometimes, before it even hits court, in a lot of cases, they want to settle. Because settling, in a lot of cases, is very cheap. What this whole thing means. Because again, unfortunately, it was settled. So we don't really know much about it because typically, when a company settles outside of court, you don't get to know what the hell happened. You don't get to really see the evidence. And that's really the bummer that comes from this whole situation. Choose if you want to send your information, and in doing so, in most cases, if you accept the settlement, that means that you can't do anything in the future. You are agreeing that this is enough for you, and they're scot-free. Class action lawsuit alleged that Crunchyroll violated the United States Video Privacy Protection Act by disclosing subscribers' personally identifiable information to Facebook and other third-party companies. Sony Picture Entertainment and Crunchyroll denied the claim. That's the key thing here. But yes, Sony and Crunchyroll denied the claim, but have decided to settle to avoid uncertainties and expenses associated with continuing the case. Again, the main key thing here is to remember when a plaintiff says, you did this, and Crunchyroll says, oh, let me look at this. In a lot of cases, what's actually happening there, again, before it gets to court is not involved at this point. They're involved because they handle the paperwork and yes, issuing you made a settlement and they make sure you follow it. But they have not gone into an actual court hearing and provided their evidence. In the process of them in the talks before it, yes, they could have said, Crunchyroll, here's our evidence, and Crunchyroll sees it and goes, yeah, that's probably enough to go to court, but at the same time, you probably won't win against us, but if we go to court, it will probably cost us more in legal fees to drag this out for 2 to 3 years than if we just settle now and just pay out the settlement. And guess what? The lawyers aren't out to get Crunchyroll and make them pay for it. They want to get that money. So they settled. So the lawyers on both sides are happy because not enough actually happened to each side and everybody's happy. And that sadly kind of ruins the idea of us as part of the settlement even getting our justice. Because again, we're only getting $30. We're not actually getting Crunchyroll or Sony for this.
If you want to watch the full video to know more about what he says, I'll put a link in the description. So what's my conclusion on this? I think people are signing this because of previous incidents that drove anime viewers mad. I can imagine a couple different scenarios based on what Otaku Spirit described. On one hand, I thought maybe the best way to make them go to court is to refrain from signing the agreement, but maybe I'm wrong since the lawyers have already decided to do this. So I don't know what happens if no one signs anything like this. Before I created a Funimation account, and this merge happened, I was briefly a free user for Crunchyroll around the holidays of 2020. So I don't know or remember if the form says free users are allowed to sign it, but either way, I'm not going to because 1, I haven't used Crunchyroll in a while, and 2, I don't want $30 from them so I can say, hey, you don't have to go to court to prove you didn't violate the law. I want this merge to end. But I don't know what it's going to take. I've been saying boycott Crunchyroll over and over again, as that may be the only way to make them listen to the consumers. But on the other hand, I don't know what other benefits it will bring. Only time will tell. Some people may choose to pirate anime, while others may just delete their Crunchyroll subscription. But some people may still choose to use their platform. Personally, I won't be creating an account there, let alone likely won't work for them as an actor because of these incidents. Or at least I don't want to audition to, replace somebody else just because they don't like union contracts. In the end, maybe this merge should never have happened in the first place.